Today's presentation is on accident. Now what? What do you do if you're involved in an accident? You're injured, or you're involved in a car accident or property damage or something like that. This is kind of one of those things that we prefer not to think about. We all tend to think that it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be the one that has an accident. I'm not going to be that person that gets in a rear end collision out on the freeway at 5 p.m. in the afternoon and everybody's mad at because they messed up traffic. It's not going to happen to me. Well, this presentation today is really to help us get out of that, to help us think about accidents can and will happen to me. They'll happen to my family. They'll happen to my coworkers and people in my staff. And so I've got to be ready for that type of an event to happen. And so I handle it appropriately. So I don't freak out. So I do the things that will help people get the help that they need, and that might be me, as well as so we do the things that will make the incident procedures go better as we go along. And that sometimes that involves paperwork and things like that. That's all part of the deal. At the end of the day, we want to prevent all the accidents that we can, but we realize things are going to happen. And so we've got to be prepared for that. Just along those lines, I looked up a few statistics and I was really blown away by the number of accidents or number of injuries that happen to people each year in the US. Millions and millions, 44.5 million injuries happen, $1 trillion in cost goes along with that, and over 100,000 preventable deaths happen. That's a crazy amount. Of those preventable deaths, almost 40,000 of those are involved in car crashes out on the highways and freeways and side streets in this country. Another scary statistic is that for each driver, you will have a crash about once every 10 years during your driving lifetime. That's statistically speaking. Some of you may have more than that, some may have less, but it's always a good time when we think of these statistics to say, where am I? Have I had an accident in the last 10 years? If not, am I due? Or have I done a good job? Am I a more defensive driver? It's always good to sit back and really be honest with ourselves about how we drive and what our accidents are at home. How often do you have a Band-Aid on your fingers or somewhere on your body where you've had an injury or an accident? How often do you taking some ibuprofen on a Saturday evening after your activities over the weekend? Is that due to some incident that you've had over the weekend? It's always good to understand where we stand on that, but realize that we all have the potential to have accidents and incidents. So we need to be prepared. Mental preparedness is, I think, just as important as physical preparedness. I can have a first aid kit, but if I don't know how to use it, or my mind turns off because I saw blood, well, I'm not really prepared to handle this. And I've seen people over the years really kind of lose their minds when an incident happened, and it wasn't, and not very serious incidents, but because they saw blood or because it was a family member or something like that, they kind of lost their minds. Well, we need to think about, well, what's going to happen if I'm in a car accident? What are the steps that I need to take? What's going to happen if one of my family members gets cut really bad? What will I have to do to respond to that? And if mentally we've prepared for that, we're going to be a lot more likely to take good, decisive actions that will be the best decisions for the situation. So some of the things that we can do on the physical preparedness side, though, are to make sure that the first aid kits are available, that we know where the AED, the automated external defibrillator, is. Where's the closest one in the event that somebody has a heart attack? How can I find those things? So one quick assignment for you today is to point out where your closest first aid kit is. And as you're walking by that today, pop the thing open and make sure that it's stocked up. If it isn't, find out who's responsible to keep that stocked and make sure it has adequate supplies in it. So if something bad happens, we've got the supplies that we need. The other part of that is know what to do. Whether it's an injury accident or auto accident, we should learn some steps to take. For an injury accident, we should learn some basic first aid skills. And there's some great opportunities out there to take classes, to take a CPR class and get certified for that. It's pretty, it's actually changed quite a bit in CPR over the last 10 years, and it's a lot easier. They wanted to make sure that people understand that CPR, it's better to do what you understand, even if you don't get everything perfect. Just get doing that because it saves lives. So make a goal, if you haven't been CPR certified, to get that. If you have, and it's maybe lapsed, to go and get a certification course there. All right. Auto accidents. The other part of our preparation is being prepared for an auto accident. Do you have an auto emergency kit? Do you know what to do in the event that you're in an accident? Some of the things that we need to have available in our emergency preparedness are phone numbers. If I'm driving a company car, I need to know who I have to report the incident to and have their number available. And most of the time it's going to be my supervisor, and that's probably easy to have their number programmed, but there may be some other reporting requirement. What about your information? Do you know if you have a proof of insurance in your vehicle? So here's another assignment for you today. Go out in your company vehicle and check in the glove compartment and see if you've got one of these. This is an auto insurance information kit, as well as an emergency kit for your car. Now, this isn't a first aid kit. This is more a documentation kit, but inside of it, it has a pad of paper and a pen and an emergency kit, emergency form, an accident form, as well as proof of insurance for your vehicle. Check in your car today and make sure it's there. If it isn't, ask the person that's responsible for your fleet, for the vehicles. If they happen to have your proof of insurance, make sure it's up to date. You need to get a new one in there every year. If that's not available, talk to that person there. And if you are the person there and you don't have that, talk to us here at the Trust and we can help out on that. But we want to have this stuff available in the event that we have an emergency. Oops. And that just, the graphic on there shows the insurance identification card. It's a printed piece of paper. So as you look in there, that's what it's going to look like. And that's the information that you need if you're involved in a car crash for law enforcement and to be able to share your information with the other person involved in the accident. All right, an injury packet. Now, this is not something that I'm going to pack around, but we want to make sure it's available in the event that it does and know where to get this. It's an employee first report of injury, and it's just a form you fill out. Supervisors need to have an incident investigation form so they can gather the information about an incident so we can do a proper review and prevent that from happening again. Okay. Just wanted to throw this in here briefly. Kind of goes along with what we're talking about, but we're rapidly approaching winter season and the snow and bad roads and all of those things. Today's a good day to check out your auto emergency kit. Take a look in your personal vehicles as well as your company cars and make sure that we have some of these things. Is there a cell phone charger in there so I can stay in communication if I get stranded somewhere? Do I have tools, collapsible shovels, jumper cables, first aid kit, maybe an auto emergency kit, some of these other things that are on this page here, some reflective triangles in the event that I get into an accident out on the freeway. I want to be able to warn away other drivers that my vehicle is there on the side of the road. Blankets and some food and water, things like that. If I get stranded on the road, I want to have those available. So today's a good day to check that out and make sure that we're prepared for something that might happen. All right. When an accident or an injury occurs, the first thing to do is stay calm. I know that's hard sometimes. Ow, I just got cut. And I'm bleeding all over. That's hard to stay calm in those situations. And that's why the mental preparedness ahead of time, okay, if I get cut, what does that mean? Well, a little bit of blood goes a long way. and it looks like a lot worse than it is in most cases. And so mentally, I've got to prepare for that. Yep, it's going to look like a lot of blood, and I got to grab a paper towel or get some gauze out of the first aid kit and put some pressure on it. Those are the steps that I need to take. And if I thought about that ahead of time, I'm going to be in better shape there. Scene safety. I'll talk about this in a second, but it's so important to review the scene and ensure that I have identified the hazards and taken precautions to keep myself from getting hurt there. Know how to identify a true emergency. If somebody has severe bleeding or a head injury or back injury or their heart attack or they're unconscious, a whole list of things, those are true medical emergencies, and we need to call 911 and get the proper first responders on the way so they can render the aid that's needed. Now, there are other incidents that happen that may not be an emergency, and we may have a different reporting procedure on that. If I bump into somebody out on the road, well, that may not be a 911 emergency, but I can call dispatch and have law enforcement come. If I bump into another employee in the parking lot, 2 vehicles there, well, we're going to have a reporting procedure there, but we may not call 911 for that type of an incident. So we want to get people the aid that they need after we've ensured that it is safe for us to do so. So we want to render aid up to the training that we have. If you know how to do first aid, you know how to do CPR and those things, go ahead and do that. And we also have the reporting procedure. It is so essential that we make these reports. Who are you going to report any incident to? Your designated supervisor. Always give your supervisor a call as soon as it's safe to do so. Get yourself to safety. If you're bleeding, put some pressure on that, and then dial by voice your supervisor and let them know, hey, I just got a bad cut on my hand doing this, and give them the information. Why is the supervisor so important? Well, that's the closest to you that we have in management, and they're there to help you get the aid that you need and also make sure everything gets taken care of. If you're involved in a car accident, your mind, or any type of accident, your mind may be going in a lot of different directions. It's important to get that supervisor notified as soon as we can, so they can help you get through this bad situation. All right. I wanted to talk specific about scene safety. A car accident is not always a car accident. There could be down power lines. There could be a hazardous material spill. We could have people injured and bleeding, potential bloodborne pathogen risks to us. Who knows? There's a lot of things that can happen when an accident happens. So the rule of thumb is, let's stand back. If I can cover the whole accident scene with my thumb, with my arm outstretched, that's a good place to stand back and just take in the whole picture. What is going on? What happened in this incident? And what hazards are there? If it's dark, it's hard to do that, but we got to keep our mind open to, if that car ran off the road and hit a power pole, there could be live power lines in the road or other similar hazards that could be out there. If somebody's injured themselves and they're bleeding, we need to protect ourselves from bloodborne pathogens. So we want to ensure that we have proper personal protective equipment, gloves and some glasses to protect ourselves from those potential risks from bloodborne diseases and other things. Car accident. This is a similar thing. What happens if you're involved in a car accident out on the freeway? Well, it may be a simple fender bender. We rear-ended somebody or they rear-ended us. The real risk comes after that incident. what do we do right directly after that accident happens? And I'm here to tell you the safest thing for you to do is to get those vehicles out of the roadway. Get to the side, preferably on the right hand. If you're on the freeway, get on that right hand emergency lane. The left hand puts you at significant risk, as well as our first responders that are going out there. So if you can get to that lane, get to the far right and get off the road. Don't worry about law enforcement getting mad at you that you move the vehicles. You can do that. Just if you've got, there's a fender bender, look at the other driver and say, hey, let's get over to the other side. That makes it safe for you. Realize that there may be sometimes that getting out of the vehicle is dangerous to you. And so you may want to remain in your vehicle. I think back to a few days where we had some really bad winter weather and cars were sliding in all directions. It's not safe for you to be out walking around your vehicle, taking pictures or rendering aid to people in those situations. Stay in your vehicle, call 911, and let's get emergency support personnel there with the equipment that can alert other drivers and protect you from that. There can be some really scary situations, so protect yourself first. And even if that means sitting in your car for a little while, waiting for law enforcement to get there. If I'm in an area that's safe to get out, then go ahead and do that. We're going to work with the other person in the car crash that we've crashed into, or they've crashed into us. And we're going to be working with them to share information and to ensure that people get the appropriate aid. So as soon as it's safe to do so, make sure the other party in the incident is getting the aid that they need. If they're bleeding and you've got some paper towels in your car, hand them the paper towels. If you're trained in first aid and you have proper PPE, go ahead and help out on those things to get them the aid that they need. Get emergency personnel coming. Call 911 if appropriate. If not, just regular dispatch, and get them out there. I always recommend calling law enforcement in on all car crashes. And you say, well, why would you do that? Why? It's a pretty simple thing. We're in a parking lot. I like to have law enforcement involved because there will be a written police report that goes along with this incident. It's written by a third party that's neutral. That will help in the overall insurance claim that comes out of that. And it will help everybody to get along, because sometimes there are disagreements about this. And then, speaking of these things, be cooperative. Share information as far as your insurance policy, your phone number, your employer if you're driving, who your employer is if you're driving a company car. Share that type of information, but don't share other things. Don't admit fault. Don't say, "Oh, it was all my fault. I totally blew it on that. Oh, hey, don't worry about it. I got great insurance. The trust will cover everything on this." We don't always know all of the details in the early stage of an incident. You may think you're at fault, but you may not be. You may not know the grand scheme of things. And so we need to hesitate in that type of a discussion. You can say, "Man, I'm sorry this happened." That's fine. But don't say it's all my fault. Okay. Share information on that insurance information form that we showed you earlier. There's all the information that you need there, but you want to share name, address, phone number, insurance company, policy number, driver's license number, license plate number. Now, if law enforcement is there, they're going to take care of most of that for you. They'll collect the information from both parties, and they'll probably print you a form with all that information. At this point, if it's safe to do so, let's document the accident. Take lots of pictures. A lot of times when I see pictures come in on incident investigations, they get in really close and they focus on the bumper where there's a little bit of damage on there. The damage is fine. You can take pictures of that, but the big thing that we want to take pictures of is the general area. What happened? We need to be able to look at and say, what were the events that led up to this? What were the weather conditions? all of those things that the big picture gets. So if you can safely do so, stand back and take your pictures of the overall incident scene and from different angles as well. Draw a picture of what happened, get witnesses to write a statement, and then fill out the accident report. So inside of this packet that you have in your vehicle, there's one of these auto accident report forms, and it has all the information. It has some good advice there. Do this, don't say this. Before you leave the scene, do this. tells you all kinds of stuff that you can do, and it gives you a place to write things down. We can get witness statements, just that pad of paper that's in here, get the person's name and phone number, and have them write down their statement, what they saw. That can help. Sometimes when there are disagreements over the exact events of an accident, those witnesses are really key. Okay, get the officer's name, which police department and their phone number. If you can get badge and all that stuff's great as well. Get as much information as you can. Do a little diagram of where the cars were positioned, which direction they were going, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have any of that stuff, just sketch it out on a napkin. And get as much information as you possibly can. Type it into your phone so you can save it if you don't have the pen or whatever. Gather that information. It's really important. I already talked about this a little bit, but that immediate reporting to your supervisor is critical. That helps us to get things rolling the right direction early on. The supervisor can help you get through some of the challenges. If your brain's not working 100% after you're involved in an accident, that supervisor may say, oh, we need to fill out these forms, we need to gather information from the other driver, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you're following your policies. If you end up going to the doctor for a work-related injury, that you get the information from the doctor. It's called return to work, and they'll give you a form that says if there are any restrictions that you have. If you're able to go directly back to work, they'll say that and all of that. Get that paper from the doc and take that to your supervisor. Okay. All right. Here's just a copy of the first report of injury form. I'll send this out to everybody that signed up for the webinar today, just for a reference form. It's really handy to gather the information, and that's for the employee who's injured. Now there's a supervisor incident investigation form that I'll send along as well. And the purpose of that is the supervisor is trying to gather the overall information so we can do a good review on it. And FYI, in about a half hour, a little over a half hour, I'm going to be doing a presentation on incident investigation and the steps that we take to do that. So gather that information and make sure it gets where it needs to be. Cooperate with the incident investigation. What's our goal in doing that? Well, we don't want anybody else to get hurt the same way that you did if you're involved in an accident. We don't want this type of incident to happen again. And so we're going to work really hard to put corrective actions in place and prevent that from happening. Maybe it's a problem with a piece of equipment. If we don't learn those lessons and fix the equipment, it could happen to somebody else. So let's work really hard, share the information, and come up with those good corrective actions so it doesn't happen again. Okay, we have covered all the information here. This is an important subject, just to be prepared when an event happens, so we make good choices. Safety is always first on this. Make sure if you're rendering aid to somebody that you only do so after you can make it safe for you. Don't run into places that can get you hurt. Learn some basic skills. First aid skills, CPR skills. Learn what an AED is and how to use that. Learn where your first aid kit is and make sure that it stays stocked. Those are just some basic things that can make sure we're ready when an incident happens. Learn how to recognize serious injuries and when to call 911. And report all incidents immediately. That is an essential step. Doesn't matter how serious those are. Let your supervisor know, hey, this just happened, and what do I do from here? Make sure you're following your policies and procedures. If you do have a workers' compensation injury where you get injured on the job, make sure that you're following those procedures and the return to work program or report that the doctor gives you, and that you're working with your supervisor so we can get you healthy and back to work as soon as we possibly can. Help with the investigation. We want to figure out what happened in this incident so it doesn't happen again. And then we can go forward and do our work and not have any of those challenges. That's the summary. Questions? I'd love to hear questions if anybody has those out there. You can type those into the chat box and let us know what your questions or comments are. Mike, what are we seeing?
I don't have any questions right now.
No questions.
Must have done a fantastic job.
Absolutely knocked it out of the park, right? No questions whatsoever. Well, folks, I'm not going to hang around for a long time for questions because I want to continue prepping for the incident investigation webinar here in a half hour. But I appreciate everybody's attendance today and taking time out of your schedule to learn a little bit and get prepared for incidents that might happen. Now, remember those challenges that I gave to you today, to go out and look in your vehicles, make sure you've got your packet in there, got that information, check your first aid kits, check your AEDs and all of those things to make sure we're prepared when that emergency happens. Thanks, everybody. Go out and have a safe day.